Hello student, welcome you to Mohan Sah's classes. Today we are going to learn and discuss about the Reformation and the Enlightenment, that is from 1300 to 1800 CE, and this is the part 4 of this chapter, and this is the seventh chapter of your social study and second chapter of your history section. In this class we are going to discuss two main topics. Those are the first one, the Catholic Church and religious reform in Europe. First topic is the Catholic Church and religious reform in Europe. And the second topic which we are going to discuss is Martin Luther and the Reformation. Second topic is Martin Luther and the Reformation. So these are the two topics we are going to discuss today's class. Let us begin the class with first topic, that is the Catholic Church and religious reform in Europe. The Catholic Church and religious reform in Europe. We know that Christianity began in Palestine region of West Asia in the 1st century CE. So all of us we know that Christianity began in Palestine. Understood? Where Christianity began? It is began in Palestine region, where in the in the West Asia. Understood? Christianity began in Palestine region of West Asia when in the 1st century. In the 1st century. At that time, the region was part of the Roman Empire. At the time, in the sense, during the 1st century, this Palestine region was part of the Roman Empire. The new region spread across the Roman Empire by the 3rd century, and almost the entire population of Europe accepted Christianity by the 8th century. So in this sentence it is said that the new religion, which religion? That means this Christianity began spread across the Roman Empire. That means throughout the Roman Empire when by the 3rd century. And almost entire population of Europe accepted Christianity when by the 8th century. The church in Rome became the central authority of the religion by the 14th century. By the 14th century, the church in Rome it became the central authority. Understood? By 14th century, the church in Rome became the central authority. It declared that all Christians should become members of the church and accept what it said on all religious matters. So this Christianity or the church, as it is become the central authority, so it declared that what it declared? It declared that all the Christians should become members of the church. Understood? What was the declaration? The declaration was that all the members or all the Christians should become the members of the church, and they have to accept what it said on all religious matter. That means whatever about the religious matter is said, so the people or the member of church has to accept it. It was called Roman Catholic Church. So what was the church? That church was called what? The Roman Catholic Church. The meaning of Catholic what? Catholic means universal church. Understood? Catholic means universal. It had a well-defined structure form of the village or neighborhood up to the regional and the world level. That means this Roman Catholic Church, it had well-defined structure from the village level, a village neighbor up to the regional and the world level. Every region had a bishop, and cardinals were nominated above them, with the Pope being the highest authority in the church. So in this sentence it is said that every region there was a bishop. Understood? and also cardinals were nominated above them. And if you talk about the highest authority of the church, Pope is the highest authority of the church. Who? Pope. Pope is the highest authority of the church. So in this paragraph, we learn that Christianity began in the Palestine region of the West Asia in the 1st century. And at that time, this Palestine was the region or part of the Roman Empire. And this new religion, that means this Christianity, spread across the Roman Empire during the 3rd century. And during the 8th century, almost all the European people, they accepted Christianity. And during 14th century, church became the central authority, and the church declared that all the Christians should become the member of church and should accept what is said by the church. And that church was called the Roman Catholic Church. The Catholic means what? Universal. And the structure of the church was from the village level to world level. And in every region there was a bishop, and above the bishops there were cardinals, and highest of all these things, or highest of all the authority, were what? Pope. Hope all of you understood this paragraph. Next paragraph. In the political environment of that time, the king had to accept the religious authority and power of the pope. If you talk about the political environment of that time, which time? That means till 14th century, 1st century to 14th century. That means the king had to accept the religious authority and power of the pope. Whatever the pope says or give the command order, king had to accept. So in a way, the administration of the kingdom was run by the combined power of the state and the religious authority. So, if you talk about this political environment or political situation of from 1st century to 14th century, it is said that the administration of the kingdoms, that means the functions of kingdoms, was run by the combined both from the state and the religious authority. There was no scope for diversity in religious thought or religious tolerance. That means during the 1st century to 14th century in Europe, there was no scope of diversity in religious. That means people could not choose any alternative religion. That means people are forced to become Christian. There was only one religion and people could not choose religion according to their wishes. So, people were not free to choose the religious path they wished to follow. So, during this 1st century to 15th century, people were they were not having freedom to choose the religion which they wanted. They had to follow the priest and the church practice and the rituals if they wish to live good Christian life and attain salvation. That means if a person want to live a good Christian life and he want to attain or get salvation or moksha or mukti, then they had to follow the priest and the church practice, even the rituals of the church. So, in this paragraph, we learn that the political environment of that time was what? The king had to accept the religious authority and power of the pope. So, it is said that the administration of kingdom was ruled by combined, that means both the state and religious authority. And there was no any scope for the religious diversity and religious tolerance. People were forced to, or people had no freedom to choose the religion what they want. They had to follow the priest and church and the rituals if they wanted to have a good Christian life and to attain the salvation or mukti. Next paragraph. The Bible was the foundation of the church. Bible was the foundation of the church. It was written in Latin, a language the common people did not understand. So the Bible was written in which language? In Latin language. And this language was unknown to the people, or people didn't understand this language. So Latin language was not understand by people, or people didn't understand Latin language. This established the authority of the priest in explaining all religious matters. So, as people didn't understand this Latin language, so because of that reason, what happened? The priest used to explain the religious matter. The priest used to explain the religious matters. The church also acted as a court to dispense justice and resolve disputes with the Pope as its supreme judge. That means church also acted as a court. That means in any kinds of problems or misunderstanding, fighting, all the justice was given in church, and all the disputes also resolved in church, and the Pope was the supreme judge in church. So, what we learn from this paragraph? In this paragraph, we learn that Bible was the foundation of the church, and it was written in the Latin language, and common people could not understand the Latin language. Because of that reason, church established the authority, and the priest used to explain the religious matters. In same time, church also act as a court. It given justice to people and resolved the dispute problem, and the chief justice was a supreme judge as whom? The Pope. Next paragraph. The church had acquired a vast land properties over the years that it managed like a feudal land owners. So in this paragraph it is said that church had acquired vast land properties. That means a large amount of land was captured or occupied by whom? By the church. And because of that reason, it managed like a feudal landowner. Church managed like a feudal landowner. Apart from this, it collected a tenth of the income of every Christian as tithe. That means religious tax. So, first thing what happened? Church captured large or the vast land properties and managed it like a feudal landowner. In same time, church also collected tenth income of every Christian. What is tenth income? Tenth of the income? That means it is said what? Tithe. It said tithe. What is tithe? That means a religious tax. So what is tithe? Example, if a person incomes 100 rupees, so out of 100 rupees, he or she has to give 10 rupees to the church. If a person income 1000 rupees, out of 1000 rupees, 100 rupees he or she has to give to church. That is called what? Tithe. It accumulated unparalleled wealth and became very powerful, exercising control over kingdoms, religion, and justice. What happened? The church accumulated unparalleled wealth. What is accumulated? That means gathered or collected a huge amount of wealth and become very powerful. Who? Church. Church become very powerful and they control over the kingdoms, religion and justice. Understood? Church collected the great wealth. They become powerful. Thereafter they control over kingdoms, religion and justice. Next, anyone raising their voice against the church was declared as heretic and punished. That means those who used to raise voice against church and fight against church, they were declared as what? Heretic. What is heretic? That means a person those who teach wrong things. Okay, wrong teacher. To them we call what? Heretic. It is what? A Greek term. And they also used to what? Punished. All this made the priest powerful and they began living in comfort and pomp. So, because of all this reason, the priests become powerful and they used to live a comfortable and pomp life. So, in this paragraph, we learn that church collected or acquired or captured a vast land properties and they managed it like a feudal land owners. Apart from that, church also what? Collected tithe. That means a religious tax. In then what happened? Church collected unparalleled wealth or a huge amount of wealth and they become very powerful and they also control over kingdoms, religion and justice. anyone those who raise voice against church, they were declared as a what, heretic, or we can say what, wrong teacher, or the teacher who is teach wrong things, and they were punished. So in this way priests become powerful and they began to live a comfortable and pomp life. Next paragraph. During the Renaissance, the church built many majestic buildings. During the period of Renaissance, church built what? Many majestic or splendid buildings. The rising expense led it to, it so the rising expense led it to took for a new ways increasing its income. So for building this majestic building, what happened? It was so expensive, and because as it was expensive, it took a new way to increase its income. That means for building these majestic buildings, they want more money, and for more money, they find out an alternative solution to get the income. It began selling certificates called indulgence, that the pardon people of their sins and save them from punishment. So what happened? For building majestic buildings, what happened? They want a lot of money, and for a lot of money they have to collect in different way, or they have to who the church priest had to find out the alternative solution. So what did they do? They began to selling a certificate. Who? The people of church, they start selling a certificate called what? Indulgence. Understood? They sold a certificate called what? Indulgence. What is that? That means through this certificate people were pardoned from their sin. What is pardon? That means forgiven. People were forgiven from their sin and saved from the punishment. So the what does this sentence says? That means for building or to construct majestic buildings, church wants more money, and for collecting more money, church find out a solution that they start selling a certificate. The name of the certificate is called what? Indulgence. That means if anyone who purchased this certificate, that means their sins will be forgiven and they will be saved from the punishment. What the church basically said was, if you have committed a sin, you can gain a pardon by paying an amount to the church. So what is the intention of church? The church said that if anyone is committing any kinds of sin, then the sin can be forgiven. How? If you pay amount to the church. If a person doing any kinds of sin, then if he pays some amount to the church, then the sin will be forgiven. The Pope will then forgive you. That means Pope will forgive them, because we know that church Pope was representing God in the world. When you stand before God in heaven, you can present your pardon certificates for the final judgment. So the people say, or the Pope says that when you die and you will go to heaven and you will stand before the God, then we can show the certificate. Then we can be what? Forgiven from the sin. This was the teaching of church. So in this paragraph we learn that during the Renaissance, church start constructing many majestic buildings, and for that it was so much expensive, and church find out an alternative solution to get income. Because of that reason, they start selling a certificate called indulgence, and it is said that, or the meaning of indulgence is that pardon people from their sin and save from the punishment. And the intention of church was that if anyone committed a sin, so they can be forgiven by paying amount to the church, and Pope will forgive. Why? Because Pope was representing God in the world. And it was said that when people will go to heaven and stand before the God, and when they will show the certificate, so they will save from the final judgment. So this was the teaching of church. We had read in the previous chapter how humanist philosophers like Erasmus criticized many of the church theories, actions, and behavior. We know that in previous chapter or chapter 6 or first chapter of history section we have learned that how humanist philosophers like whom like a Erasmus he criticized many of the church theories and action and behavior. They were called Christian humanists. They were called Christian humanists too, like a Erasmus and other. They were not rebelling against the church but were pleading for internal reform. So this humanists who, like Erasmus, they were not rebelling or doing rebellion against the church, but they were pleading or requesting internal reform or changes. It was during this time that the poor, the farmers, and artisans joined the protest in large numbers. So during this time, what happened? Poor peoples, farmers, artisans, they joined in the protest in large numbers. They opposed the church's oppressive practice and called the internal faith and belief. What happened? These people who had opposed whom? To the oppressive practice of church and called for the internal faith and belief. So in this paragraph we learn that in the previous chapter, we have learned that humanist philosophers like Erasmus and others they criticize of many of the church theories, action, and behavior. So they were called what? Christian humanist. So they were not rebelling against the church, but they were requesting for the internal reformation. And during this time, what happened? Poor people, farmer, artisan, they also joined in the protest in large number. They opposed the church oppressive practice and call for the internal faith and belief. The kingdom of Northern Europe began challenging the power of the Pope. The kingdom of the Northern Europe they began for what? Challenging the power of the Pope. The rulers of England, Germany, and other countries wanted to free themselves from the Pope's control. That means the rulers of England, Germany, they wanted to make them free from the control of popes. They also had their eyes on the church landed properties and wealth. Who? These people, they were also having their eyes on the church land and property. In this situation, Martin Luther began a revolt against the Catholic Church. So during this time what happened? Martin Luther he revolted against the Catholic Church. So this is what we learn about the Catholic Church and the religious reform in Europe, our first topic. Now we are going to learn or discuss about the second topic, Martin Luther and the Reformation. Martin Luther and the Reformation. Martin Luther, he was born in 1483 and died in 1543. Common Era CE. Was a German priest who concluded that the external rituals could not be the path to salvation. So, who was Martin Luther? He was a German priest. He was born in 1483 and died in 1543 CE or Common Era. So, according to him, or he concluded, or he said that external riches could not be the path to salvation. He said that external or outside rituals is not the way to get salvation or to receive mukti or moksha. He said only God's grace and personal faith could lead to salvation. According to Martin Luther, only through the grace of God or through the personal faith we could get salvation. In 1517, he wrote this the 95 Theses, which question the church's claim that freedom from sin and punishment can be purchased with money or indulgence and that external rituals could lead to salvation. So what happened? In the year of 1517, he wrote the 95 Theses. And in that thesis, it was questioned to the church that Freedom from sin and punishment can be purchased with money or indulgence, and the external riches could lead to salvation. That means he opposed. What he opposed? That means we cannot be forgiven from our sin and saved from the punishment through the indulgence or pardon seeking certificate and external rituals. Understood? That means through the external rituals, and for the certificate or the pardon seeking certificate, we can't get salvation. So, who opposed? Martin Luther. He opposed by writing 95 Theses in the year of 1517 Common Era. His letter to the church was printed in a large number and spread in thought far and wide. That means this Martin Luther letter, it was printed in large number and spread his thoughts far and wide area. He found wide support from the common people and ruling kings. So common people and ruling kings supported to Martin Luther. The Pope declared Luther a heretic, that means anti-religious or wrong teacher. Who declared? Pope. And excommunicated him, that means vanished him from the Catholic faith in the year of 1520. So what happened? When Martin Luther opposed or questioned against this what? Indulgence certificate and the external rituals which lead to people for salvation, then church Pope declared him as a heretic or the wrong teacher or anti-religious, and they what happened? Excommunicated or they were removed or vanished him from the Catholic faith in the year of 1520. So in this paragraph we will learn that Martin Luther, a German priest, so he concluded or he given the opinion that through the external ritual we cannot get salvation. Only through the grace of God and personal faith we can get salvation. And because of that reason, in the year of 1517 Common Era, he wrote 95 theses against the church about teaching of this pardon seeking certificate and external ritual that lead to salvation. And his thought and letters were spread across the uh, world over, and because of that reason many common people supported him, even the king also supported him. And then what happened? Pope declared him as a heretic and they removed him from the Catholic faith from in the year of 1520. Luther published 3 books that same year to spread his view about church among the common people. What happened? In the same year, Luther spread almost 3 books about the church or to spread his view about the church and among the common people. His theological ideas formed the basis of the Protestant Reformation. So, the theological ideas of Martin Luther formed the basis of what? Protestant Reformation. Seeing the mass support of Luther, the kings did not dare to take any action against him. What happened? As a huge or the vast number of people were supporting Luther, that's why king did not dare to take any action against Martin Luther. Many small and feudal states in Germany put pressure on the Catholic king to protect their religious rights. So many small feudal states in Germany, they put pressure on whom? On the Catholic kings. For what? To protect their religious rights. In 1555, the king gave the people the freedom to choose between Protestantism and Catholicism. So what happened? In the year of 1555, the king gave freedom to people. That means people could choose either Protestantism or Catholicism. That means either Protestant Christian or Catholic Christian. At that time, the Protestants were not an organized religion but had many sects influenced by the thoughts of religious thinkers like Luther, Calvin, Zwingli, etc. So during the time, Protestant was not an organized religion, but there were many sects who were influenced the thoughts of religious thinkers like who? Like Luther, Calvin, Zwingli. So these were the religious thinker of Protestant Christian religion. So in this paragraph we learn that Luther published 3 books on that year for spread his view about the church and among the common people. Then what happened? His theological ideas formed basis of the Protestant Reformation. And as many mass people supported Luther, King did not dare to take any action against Luther. Many small feudal lords or state of Germany they put pressure on the Catholic kings to protect their religious rights. But what happened in the year of 1555? The king gave freedom to people to choose either Protestant or Catholic Christianity. At the time, what happened? The Protestant Christian was not an organized religion, but it was influenced by many of the religious thinkers like Luther, Calvin, Zwingli. Let us now examine the main features of Protestantism. So, let us examine the main features of Protestantism. Even though it contained many sects, it had many common features. There were many common features. First, the Protestants believed that the salvation can only be achieved through personal faith in God's grace, not any rites or practice ordered by church. According to the belief of this Protestant, they believe that a person or we can get salvation only through what? Personal faith in God's grace. Understood? Only through personal faith in God's grace, not through any rites or any rituals, which is ordered by church. This meant the people did not need a priest to perform this duty. So, what does it mean? This meant is that people did not need a priest to perform these duties. They even believed that every Christian could become a priest to reach God. So, according to the teaching and belief of Protestant, it is said that even every Christian can become a priest to reach God or to get salvation. The Protestants said people should practice their faith by reading Bible themselves. So, Protestants said that people should practice faith by how? By reading the Bible themselves. To make this possible, they translated the Bible into regional European languages and printed into large numbers to distribute widely among the people. So as people has to read the Bible and understand by themselves, because of that reason, as we know that the Bible was already written in the Latin language and common people could not read that one, because of that reason the Bible was translated into the European or regional European language, and it was printed in the large number and it was freely distributed among the people. Next, in the year of 1522, Luther translated the Bible into German. In the year of 1522, Luther translated the Bible into German language. So in this paragraph, we can learn that the what are the common features of Protestant Christianity. There was many what happened sects, but the features were common. What are the first features? That means Protestant believe that salvation can be achieved through how? Personal faith in God, not by any rituals, any practice or order of the church. That means people need not a, or people don't need a priest to perform these duties. And it is believed that every Christian can become a priest to reach God. And Protestants said that we should practice faith by reading Bible themselves. And because of that reason, Bible was translated into regional European languages. It was printed in large number and it was freely distributed among the people. Then in the year of 1522, Martin Luther he translated Bible into German language. All this had a deep impact on Catholic Church. That means all this process what happened, it had a deep impact on the Catholic Church. It led to a reform movement with the church itself, which is called the Counter Reformation. So, this movement led to a reform movement within the church itself, and that is called what? Counter Reformation. It is called what? Counter Reformation, because this Reformation took place within the church. The Reformation did not just end some of the shortcomings of Catholic religion. What happened? The Reformation did not just end up some of the shortcomings of the Catholic religion. Its most epoch changing result was to end religious uniformity of Europe and the monopoly of the church over religious affairs. So, what was the most the important point or features? That means changing result was to what? End the religious on uniformity. Okay, that means to change or to finish the uniformity of the Europe and to finish the monopoly of monopoly means what? That means whatever the popes that is the final. So these kinds of what concept and thought they wanted to finish it up. Countries like England did not initially try to establish a state church, but it was impossible to stop the multiplicity of sects that developed over time. That means what happened? Country like England, initially they were not willing to accept all these things, but what happened? They could not stop as the multiplicity of sects and the development over time. Gradually, the link between the church and the state was snapped. So slowly what happened? The link between the church and state was snapped. This allowed people the freedom to choose their own religion and helped make the states or more secular. So these things would help the people or given freedom to people to choose their religion according to their ways, and it also helped to make what a state more secular. So in this paragraph we will learn that church has deep this which one, the Protestantism has a deep impact on Catholic Church, and because of this reason what happened led to Reformation movement within the church, and that's why it is called what? Counter Reformation. And the Reformation did not just end up some shortcoming of the Catholic Church, but the most epoch changing was that to end the religious uniformity in Europe and monopoly of the church over the religious affairs. Initially, what happened? Countries like England tried to establish a state church, but it is impossible to stop the multiplicity of sects and develop over time. What happened? Gradually, the link between church and state was snapped, and people were allowed to take the people were given freedom to choose their own religion, and it also helped for what establishing a state with more secular. So this is what about Martin Luther and the Reformation, and I hope all of you understood the 2 points which we discussed. The first one we discussed is that the Catholic Church and the religious reform in Europe. Second topic we discuss Martin Luther and the religious reform. Rest of the chapter we'll discuss in part 5 of the video.